Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into the story. Amelia sat nervously in the bustling café, the hum of conversation and clink of silverware filling the air around her. She adjusted her jacket and glanced at her watch for the fifth time in as many minutes. A blind date. Her first ever. Jenny had convinced her to give it a try, saying it might just be the break she needed. Amelia wasn't so sure. She had never been comfortable in places like this, surrounded by polished tables, crystal glasses, and fancy decor. The truth was, her life didn't match the elegance of this restaurant. She was just a waitress trying to make ends meet, hoping one day her dream of opening her own art studio would come true. But for now, she was stuck here hoping this date would turn out better than the awkwardness she was already feeling. She looked around nervously, scanning the room for someone who might be her date. Her eyes landed on a sharply dressed man sitting alone at a table near the back. His dark hair was neatly styled, and he seemed engrossed in his phone. This had to be him, she thought. She took a deep breath, and with a forced smile, she approached his table. "Hi, you must be Kevin. I'm Amelia, nice to meet you." The man looked up at her, blinking in confusion. He stared at her for a second, clearly not expecting anyone to approach him. His expression was one of slight surprise. Hi. Amelia, he said slowly, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. Amelia, feeling the awkwardness rising, quickly took a seat across from him. She fidgeted with her napkin, her hands cold and clammy. "I know this is awkward. Blind dates are weird, right?" she said, trying to break the silence. "Jenny told me you might be a little quiet, so don't worry, I can talk enough for both of us." She laughed nervously, and for a moment, there was a strange tension between them. Kevin opened his mouth to respond, but hesitated. He glanced down at his phone, then back at her. Something about Amelia's earnest smile made him pause. She wasn't like the polished women he usually interacted with, those who smiled with practiced ease and spoke in carefully measured tones. No, Amelia was different. Her nervous energy, her warmth, her openness, it was all genuine. And for some reason, that made him want to stay. "Right," Kevin said, finally, "blind dates are something else." He smiled faintly, setting his phone aside. "So, what do you do, Amelia?" he asked, trying to steer the conversation away from the uncomfortable start. Amelia brightened slightly. "I'm a waitress," she said with a shrug. "Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills. Well, most of them anyway." "What do you do?" she asked, her voice growing more confident as she spoke about her day-to-day life. Kevin paused for a moment before replying. "I work in tech," he said vaguely. "Tech stuff, mostly startups and innovation." Amelia's face lit up, though she had no idea what he meant. "Coding, apps and things?" she asked, her smile widening. "I'm terrible at computers. I don't even know how they work half the time." Kevin chuckled softly, the tension between them easing. "Something like that," he replied, his eyes studying her, still intrigued by her openness. Despite the awkward start, the conversation flowed surprisingly well. Amelia shared stories of her life, how she juggled multiple shifts, how she had been working her way through college, and her dream of one day having her own art studio. Kevin found himself laughing more than he had in a while, enjoying her lightheartedness and the simple, unpretentious way she saw the world. For the first time in a long while, Kevin felt a spark of connection with someone who wasn't interested in him for his wealth or status, but simply for who he was. Amelia, in turn, couldn't help but feel a bit more comfortable around him. The man she thought was going to be stiff and unapproachable had turned out to be more real than she had expected. Amelia was just about to ask him more about his work when her phone buzzed in her bag. Hey, Amelia, where are you? I'm at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you. Her heart sank as she read the text. She looked up at Kevin, her face turning beet red with embarrassment. You're not Kevin, are you? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Kevin's smile faltered, and for a moment, he seemed unsure of what to say. No, he replied slowly. I'm not Kevin. Amelia's face went pale as the realization hit her. Oh my God, she muttered, standing up abruptly. I'm so sorry. I must have sat at the wrong table. She grabbed her coat, her face burning with shame. Kevin stood up too, his expression filled with a mix of guilt and curiosity. Wait, Amelia. It's okay. But she was already heading toward the door, her footsteps quickening. Kevin watched her go, an odd feeling stirring in his chest. He had meant to correct her right away, but something about her made him hesitate. Now, as he stood there watching her leave, he couldn't shake the thought that maybe he had just met someone different. Amelia rushed out of the café, her heart pounding in her chest. She hadn't planned on this being how her night went. But as she hurried down the sidewalk, she couldn't shake the strange feeling that had come over her. For a brief moment, she had felt something real. And now, she wondered if she'd ever see him again. The thought of not seeing him, however, left her with an unexpected sense of loss. Back in his penthouse, Kevin sat down, staring out at the city lights below. The usual hum of the city, the soft noise of the streets, and the distant traffic did little to calm the storm inside him. He couldn't stop replaying the conversation he had just had with Amelia. There was something about her that made him feel normal again, something he hadn't felt in years. She had been honest, vulnerable, and kind. She hadn't looked at him like he was a millionaire, she had just seen him as a person. He hadn't planned on meeting someone like her tonight. And now, he couldn't help but wonder if this mix-up had been a mistake or a strange twist of fate. I need to see her again, Kevin muttered to himself. And with that thought, he grabbed his phone and began typing a message, not knowing that this was the beginning of something far more complicated than he could have imagined. The next morning, Amelia sat at her small kitchen table, staring at her phone in disbelief. She had barely slept the night before, the memory of the awkward blind date still fresh in her mind. The man, Kevin, had seemed so out of place in the cafe. Everything about him was polished and perfect, while she was just her. But there was something in his eyes, a kindness she hadn't expected from someone like him. And when she ran out of the cafe, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had made a huge mistake. Her phone buzzed again, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from an unknown number. Hi, Amelia. It's Kevin. The guy from last night. I know this was a mix-up, but I'd really like to see you again. Maybe coffee? Let me know. Amelia stared at the message for a moment, her heart skipping a beat. It had been a mistake. She was sure of it. But something about Kevin's message felt sincere, not like the usual awkward "I'm sorry" texts people send after a bad date. She took a deep breath, contemplating her next move. Should she ignore it? Or was there a chance to redeem herself? She felt her hand tremble slightly as she typed a response. Okay, coffee sounds nice. She hit send before she could talk herself out of it. It was only coffee. It was nothing to worry about. But why did her stomach feel like it was tied in knots? Later that day, Amelia met Kevin at a small, cozy coffee shop. It wasn't anything fancy, just a place where people could relax without the pressure of appearances. Kevin was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking casual in a gray sweater and jeans. He looked different from the guy she had seen last night in the suit and tie, but still somehow just as handsome. Hi, Amelia said, her voice a little shaky as she approached the table. I hope I'm not late. Kevin looked up, his face breaking into a warm smile. Not at all, he said, standing up to greet her. I'm glad you came. He gestured for her to sit down, and she did, feeling her nerves slowly settle. They ordered their drinks, and for a while, the conversation flowed naturally. Kevin was easy to talk to, his humor dry but endearing. He asked her about her life, about her dreams of one day opening her own art studio. Amelia found herself sharing more than she had planned, her passion for painting spilling out in ways she hadn't expected. "You're really talented," Kevin said, genuinely impressed as she spoke about her art. "I can see why you want to open your own studio." Amelia smiled, a little embarrassed by the praise. "I don't know about talented," she said, shrugging. "I just love it. It's the one thing that makes me feel like I'm actually doing something worthwhile." Kevin leaned back in his chair, studying her. "I get that," he said softly. "I've spent most of my life doing things that were expected of me, not things I actually enjoyed. I admire anyone who can follow their passion." Amelia raised an eyebrow. "What about you? What do you really want to do?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Kevin's smile faltered for a brief moment, and then he shrugged. "I guess I haven't figured that out yet. Maybe it's why I work so much." She nodded, sensing the unspoken tension in his words. They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the coffee shop providing a comfortable backdrop. She could feel the chemistry between them, something real this time. And though she was still trying to figure out what was going on, she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him. As they continued to talk, Kevin's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his brow furrowing slightly. "I'm sorry," he said, excusing himself. "I just need to check something quickly." Amelia nodded, sipping her coffee, though her mind wandered. She couldn't help but wonder what he was checking. But when Kevin returned his attention to her, the moment passed, and they picked up their conversation as if nothing had interrupted it. "So, what's the most important thing you've learned from your art?" Kevin asked, leaning forward. Amelia thought for a moment. "It's all about expressing what you feel, even when words fail," she said quietly. "Art has a way of saying things you can't quite explain. It helps me make sense of everything." Kevin nodded, his gaze intense. "I think that's what I've been missing. Something real to hold on to. Maybe that's why I don't feel at home anywhere." There was a quiet understanding between them, a connection neither of them had expected. The more they spoke, the more Amelia realized that Kevin wasn't just the businessman he appeared to be. He had his own struggles, his own emptiness he was trying to fill, just like her. As they finished their coffee, Kevin stood up and smiled. "I'm really glad we did this. I know it was all kind of unexpected. But I'd like to see you again." Amelia stood too, her heart pounding in her chest. She smiled back, the nerves slowly fading. "I'd like that too," she said. They exchanged a look, one full of potential. The evening wasn't over yet, and neither of them knew where it would lead, but one thing was clear: this wasn't just a simple coffee date. Something deeper had begun to form between them, something neither of them could ignore. As Amelia walked away from the coffee shop, she couldn't help but smile to herself. She wasn't sure what would come of this if anything, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, this could be the start of something real. Amelia woke up the next morning with the same question lingering in her mind. What was this connection with Kevin? It had started as a simple mistake, two people sitting at the wrong tables. Yet, now, after their coffee date, she couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper had started to unfold between them. She found herself staring out the window, the early morning light filtering through, as she thought about everything they had talked about. She had never expected her life to take this turn, but here she was, questioning everything she thought she knew about herself and what she wanted. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a text from Kevin. "Hey, Amelia, I hope you slept well. I was thinking about what you said yesterday about your art. I'd love to see it in person sometime, if you're open to that." Amelia smiled, the warmth in her chest growing. Kevin had been thinking about their conversation too, and the fact that he wanted to see her art in person made her heart race a little faster. She wasn't sure why it felt so significant, but it did. It wasn't just about the art, it was about him seeing her for who she truly was, beyond the waitress who worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. He wanted to know her, to understand her. "I'd love that," she texted back, her fingers hovering over the screen for a moment before she added, "How about this weekend?" "I'm off on Saturday." The response came quickly. "Saturday sounds perfect. Let me know where and when." "I'll be there." Amelia felt a mixture of excitement and nerves as she set her phone down. She had agreed to show him her work, to invite him into that part of her life that few people ever got to see. It felt like a big step, a moment that could either push them closer together or set them apart. She wasn't sure which it would be, but she knew she had to take the chance. Saturday arrived, and Amelia was up early, preparing her apartment for the first time in a long while. The small space wasn't much, just a modest living room and a tiny kitchen, but it was hers. She hung a few of her best sketches on the walls, rearranged her art supplies, and made sure everything was neat. She wanted Kevin to see the side of her that she rarely showed to anyone. The side that was passionate, creative, and real. By the time Kevin arrived, she was ready, though her nerves were still on edge. She opened the door to find him standing there, a little unsure but still smiling that warm, easy smile she had come to enjoy. "Hey, this place looks great," he said as he stepped inside, glancing around at the walls lined with her art. "I'm impressed." Amelia couldn't help but laugh nervously. "It's not much," she said, "but it's home. Come on in." She led him to the small dining table where she had set up some of her recent sketches. Kevin sat down and looked at each piece, his gaze thoughtful. "This is incredible," he said, genuinely impressed. "You've got a real gift, Amelia. I can see why you want to open a studio." Her heart swelled at his words. She had spent so much of her life doubting herself, but hearing him say that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she was on the right path. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft. "I've always wanted to create something meaningful. Something that could help others feel what I feel when I look at the world." Kevin nodded, his eyes never leaving her art. "You've definitely done that," he said, looking up at her. "You've got a way of capturing emotion in your work. It's not just lines and colors. It's life." Amelia felt a blush creep up her neck. "I never really know what I'm doing until I start. It's like the art guides me." She sat down beside him, her hands resting on the table. "I think that's how I feel about life right now. I'm just going along with it. Seeing where it leads." Kevin turned to her, his expression softening. "You don't have to figure it all out right now," he said gently. "You're doing great. And I think you've got something amazing ahead of you." For a moment, there was a quiet stillness between them. Amelia's heart was racing, not just from the compliments, but from the way Kevin looked at her. There was something in his eyes that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't experienced before. And that connection, that understanding, made her feel more vulnerable than ever. But before she could say anything more, Kevin's phone buzzed, breaking the moment. He glanced down at it, a frown crossing his face. Amelia noticed the shift in his demeanor. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice tentative. Kevin sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "It's just work," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. "Sometimes it feels like I'm always working, always trying to prove something. I don't know how to escape it." Amelia looked at him, her heart softening. She could see the weight he carried, even if he didn't want to show it. "You don't have to prove anything to me," she said quietly. "You're here, and that's enough." Kevin smiled, though it was a little bittersweet. "Thanks, Amelia. I really needed to hear that." They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, both lost in their thoughts. Amelia wasn't sure what was happening between them, but she knew she didn't want this moment to end. And for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, something real was beginning to take shape. The evening wore on, and as they talked more, shared more, the connection between them deepened. By the time Kevin left, it was clear that their paths were no longer just crossing, they were becoming intertwined, and neither of them could ignore the pull they felt toward each other. The next few days passed in a blur, with Amelia and Kevin staying in touch, exchanging messages and spending more time together. The connection between them was undeniable, though neither of them wanted to admit it yet. Amelia found herself thinking about him more than she should. She wasn't ready to jump into something serious, especially not with someone as seemingly out of her reach as Kevin. He was a man who moved in a world she wasn't sure she belonged to. But every time they spoke, it felt different. He made her feel seen, something she hadn't realized she needed so badly. They met again the following weekend, this time at a charity event Kevin was hosting. He had invited her, though he hadn't told her much about what to expect. Amelia had been nervous about what to wear, unsure of how to fit into the upscale environment, but Kevin had reassured her. "Just come as you are," he had said, and so she did. She wore a simple dress, something she felt comfortable in, though she couldn't deny the nerves that bubbled up as she stepped into the glamorous venue. The grand ballroom was filled with people in tuxedos and gowns, sparkling chandeliers hanging above, and the buzz of high society conversations filled the air. Amelia took a deep breath as she entered, scanning the room for Kevin. She spotted him across the room, talking with a group of well-dressed people. When he caught sight of her, his face lit up. He excused himself from the conversation and made his way toward her. "Amelia," he said, his smile wide. "I'm glad you came." She smiled back, her nerves slowly dissipating as she felt the warmth of his presence. "Thanks for inviting me. This is amazing." She glanced around, taking in the elegance of the event. "It's a bit overwhelming, though." Kevin chuckled, his eyes twinkling. "It can be, but don't worry. You're here with me. Just enjoy yourself." Amelia nodded, feeling more at ease with Kevin by her side. He led her to a quieter corner, away from the crowd, where they could talk more privately. As they sat down at a small table, Amelia noticed that Kevin's demeanor had changed slightly. He seemed more serious, more distant, as if something was weighing on his mind. "Is everything okay?" she asked, sensing the shift in his mood. Kevin hesitated for a moment before responding. "I'm just tired," he said, his voice soft. "I've been so focused on work, on everything I'm supposed to be doing, that I feel like I'm losing track of what really matters." He looked at her, his eyes searching. "You're right. This event, this whole thing, it's not the real me. And I don't want to keep pretending." Amelia's heart ached at his words. She could see the struggle in him, the weight of expectations pressing down. "You don't have to keep pretending with me, Kevin," she said gently. "I see you. Not the CEO, not the businessman. Just you." He smiled softly, the tension easing from his shoulders. "Thank you, Amelia. That means more to me than you know." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his words lingering in the air. Amelia couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for him. He was strong, but vulnerable, and she wanted to be there for him, even if she didn't fully understand everything he was going through. As the evening went on, the two of them enjoyed the event, talking and laughing, even sharing a slow dance. Amelia had never imagined she would find herself in such a beautiful moment, in the arms of someone like Kevin. She had always believed that the world she moved in was too far removed from his, too ordinary, too simple. But right now, in this moment, it felt like they were just two people, connected, sharing something real. By the end of the night, as they stood on the balcony looking out over the city lights, Kevin turned to her and said, "I know I've been guarded, but I'm starting to realize that maybe I don't need to be. I want to let you in, Amelia. I want to be honest with you, because I don't think I can keep pretending like I don't feel something for you." Amelia's breath caught in her throat. She had been waiting for him to say those words, but hearing them felt like a rush of relief. She hadn't realized how much she had been holding back until now. "I feel it too," she said softly, her heart racing. I'm not sure where this is going. But I know I want to see where it goes with you." Kevin smiled, his hand gently brushing against hers. Then let's take it one step at a time. No pressure, no pretenses. Just us. Amelia nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle into her heart. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was on the right path. She didn't know what the future would hold, but she knew one thing for sure: this was real. And that was all that mattered. As the night came to an end, Kevin walked Amelia to her car, his hand still resting gently on her back. "I'll see you soon," he said, his voice warm. Amelia smiled, her heart full. "I'm looking forward to it." As she drove home, the city lights blurred past her, but she couldn't help but feel like her life had changed in ways she hadn't expected. She wasn't sure what was ahead, but she was finally ready to embrace it, whatever it was. The days that followed were filled with a sense of quiet anticipation. Amelia and Kevin continued to spend time together, though something had shifted between them. They were no longer just two people on a casual date. There was a deeper connection growing, one neither of them was willing to deny. Kevin was still a man of mystery in many ways, but his walls were coming down, piece by piece. Amelia could see the vulnerability he tried so hard to hide, and that only made her care for him more. One evening, they sat together on the balcony of Kevin's apartment, watching the city lights twinkle below them. The view was breathtaking, but Amelia found herself more captivated by Kevin's quiet presence beside her. He had opened up more to her in the past week than he had in the months they'd known each other, and each conversation felt like a new layer being peeled away. Kevin leaned back in his chair, his gaze distant for a moment as if lost in thought. "I don't usually do this," he said, breaking the silence. "Let people in, I mean. I guess I've always kept my distance because, well, it's safer that way." Amelia looked at him, her heart softening at the honesty in his voice. "I understand," she said quietly. "It's easier to keep people at arm's length. I've done the same." Kevin turned to her, his expression serious. "But I don't want to keep you at arm's length, Amelia. I don't want to hold back with you. You've become someone I want to share my life with." Her breath caught in her throat. The words she had been waiting to hear, the words she had been afraid to say herself, had finally come from him. "I want that too," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought it would be with someone like you. But here I am, and I feel like maybe I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Kevin reached across the table, taking her hand in his. The warmth of his touch sent a spark of electricity through her, and she realized just how much he had come to mean to her. This was no longer about a casual connection. It was real, and it was something she was willing to fight for. "I'm glad you're here, Amelia," he said softly. "I don't know where this is going yet, but I want to find out with you. Together." Amelia smiled, her heart full. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "I'm ready to see where this goes, wherever it may lead." The moment hung between them, a quiet understanding passing between their gazes. Neither of them knew exactly what the future held, but for the first time, they didn't need to. They were simply enjoying the present, savoring the connection they had discovered. As the days turned into weeks, their bond only deepened. They spent more time together, not just at events or fancy dinners, but in quiet moments walking through the park, visiting art galleries, sharing meals at Amelia's small apartment. With each passing day, Amelia found herself falling more and more in love with Kevin, not just because of his wealth or his status, but because of the man he was when he let his guard down. Kevin, too, found himself drawn to Amelia in ways he hadn't expected. She was different from anyone he had ever met. She didn't see him as a billionaire or a CEO. She saw him for who he truly was, someone who had spent so long behind a mask, hiding from the world. She made him feel seen, heard, and understood, and that was something he had been searching for, without even realizing it. One afternoon, as they sat in a café, Kevin reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small box. Amelia's heart skipped a beat as he placed it in front of her. "What's this?" she asked, her voice trembling with excitement. Kevin smiled, his eyes soft. "I know we're still figuring things out, but I wanted to give you something to show you how much you mean to me. This isn't about commitment or expectations, just a reminder that I'm here." I want you in my life. Amelia opened the box, revealing a simple silver necklace with a small, delicate pendant. It wasn't flashy or extravagant, but the meaning behind it was clear. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked up at him. Kevin, she whispered, touched beyond words. It's not much, he said, his voice low, but it's a symbol. A symbol of what we've built together. A reminder that no matter what, we're in this together. Amelia reached across the table, taking his hand. Thank you, she said softly. It's perfect. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their unspoken feelings filling the space between them. For the first time in their lives, they both felt like they had found something real. No more pretenses. No more hiding. Just two people, willing to open their hearts to each other. As Amelia left the cafe that afternoon, the necklace around her neck felt like the beginning of something new. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a promise. A promise that no matter the challenges ahead, they would face them together. And for the first time in a long time, Amelia was ready to embrace whatever the future held, knowing that she had someone by her side who truly saw her, who truly loved her. Days turned into weeks, and Amelia found herself more deeply entwined in Kevin's life. The connection they had was undeniable, and the simple moments they shared, whether it was an evening walk or quiet conversations over dinner, only made their bond stronger. Kevin had slowly opened up to her, sharing more about his past, the pressure he felt running his empire, and the loneliness that often accompanied his success. Amelia, in turn, shared her dreams and fears, letting him in more than she ever had before. One afternoon, Kevin invited her to his office, something he had never done before. It was an impressive building in the heart of the city, towering over everything around it. Amelia was both nervous and excited. She had never been inside such a place, and though Kevin had reassured her that it was just an office, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was a big step. As they entered, the sleek, modern design of the office overwhelmed her. Glass walls, polished floors, and minimalist decor was a world that felt so different from the small apartment where she spent most of her time. Kevin noticed her wide eyes and smiled softly. It's a little intimidating, isn't it, he said, guiding her toward a comfortable seating area. I spend most of my days here, but I've never brought anyone in. Amelia took a seat, still trying to get used to the idea of this part of Kevin's life. I can see why, she said, glancing around. This place is impressive. But it feels cold, somehow. Kevin sat beside her, his expression thoughtful. It can be, he said. I've built it all to show people that I'm capable, that I've made something of myself. But I've realized, lately, that it doesn't mean as much as I thought it would. The real value is in the people you choose to let in. Amelia met his gaze, her heart swelling at his words. I'm glad you're letting me in, she said softly. This is a side of you I don't think many people get to see. Kevin smiled and reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. You're right. I don't let many people in, but I want to. I want you to be a part of my life, Amelia, not just in the moments when we're together, but in everything. She felt a rush of emotion at his words, unsure of what the future held but certain that this was something real. She had never thought she would be here, in this world, with a man like Kevin, but now, it felt like she belonged. They didn't have everything figured out, but they were willing to work through it together. I want that too, she said, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her chest. I want to be a part of your life, Kevin. All of it. Kevin's eyes softened as he looked at her. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want you in it. You've brought something to my life that I didn't even know I was missing. The quiet tension between them grew, the unspoken feelings settling in the air around them. Kevin reached into his desk drawer, pulling out a small envelope. He handed it to Amelia, his hand steady but his eyes full of meaning. What's this? She asked, her curiosity piqued. It's something I've been working on, he said, his voice low. Something that might change things for us. Amelia opened the envelope to reveal a set of documents. Her eyes widened as she read the first few lines. A partnership agreement, she asked, looking up at Kevin in surprise. Kevin nodded. I've been thinking a lot about what I want, and I want to build something with you. Not just as your boyfriend, but as a partner in every sense of the word. I want us to have something that's ours. Something that lasts. Amelia's heart raced as she processed his words. This wasn't just about a business deal. It was about him trusting her with his life, his future. Kevin, she whispered, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. Kevin smiled, a hint of vulnerability in his eyes. You don't have to say anything right now. I just want you to know that I'm here. And I want to be there for you, too. The weight of his words hung in the air, and Amelia couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. She had come into this relationship unsure of where it would go, but now, she could see that it was leading somewhere she never expected a future. A real future. Together. As they sat in the office, the world outside seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them, connected by more than just love. It was a partnership, a promise, and in that moment, Amelia realized that maybe this was exactly where she was meant to be. Later that night, as she lay in bed, Amelia thought about everything that had happened. She had once believed that dreams were just that, dreams. But now, with Kevin by her side, it felt like those dreams were beginning to take shape. She didn't know what the future held, but she was ready to face it, with him. The next few weeks were filled with new beginnings. Amelia and Kevin had settled into a rhythm, balancing their time between their growing relationship and their individual lives. The partnership Kevin had proposed was still on the table, but neither of them had rushed to make any big decisions. They were taking it slow, letting things unfold naturally. And in that time, something had changed within Kevin. The walls he had built up around himself were coming down, slowly but surely. One evening, after a long day of work, Kevin invited Amelia to a private dinner at his apartment. The place had always been grand and impressive, but tonight, it felt different. There was a warmth in the air, a softness that wasn't there before. The lights were dim, candles flickering on the table, casting a gentle glow on the space. As they sat down to eat, Kevin seemed more at ease, more present than ever before. I've been thinking a lot, Kevin said, breaking the comfortable silence between them. He reached across the table, taking Amelia's hand in his. About us, about the future. I know we've been moving slowly, but I want you to know something. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Amelia felt her heart skip a beat. She wasn't sure where this conversation was going, but she knew it was important. What do you mean? She asked softly, her eyes locking with his. Kevin took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to say the words he had been holding back for so long. I want to build a life with you, Amelia. Not just a business partnership, but a real life. I don't want to keep hiding behind all this. He gestured around them, to the lavish apartment, the career he had built. I want to be with you, fully. And I want you to be a part of everything I do. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. This was what she had wanted, what she had been afraid to hope for. She had seen glimpses of Kevin's vulnerability, but hearing him say it so openly felt like a gift. She squeezed his hand, her voice barely above a whisper. I want that too, Kevin. I've never been more sure of anything. Kevin's face softened, and a smile spread across his lips. He leaned in slightly, his eyes full of warmth and affection. I've been so focused on work, on making something of myself, that I forgot what it meant to actually live. But with you, I feel like I'm starting to understand what really matters. You make me feel like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be. The sincerity in his words made Amelia's heart swell. She had always dreamed of a life filled with love, passion, and purpose. And now, with Kevin, she felt like that dream was finally becoming a reality. We're both finding our way, she said, her voice soft yet steady. And I want to build something with you, too. Together. The rest of the evening was filled with quiet conversations, laughter, and moments of shared understanding. As they finished their dinner, Kevin stood up and walked over to the window, looking out over the city skyline. Amelia joined him, standing beside him as they both took in the view. "I've been thinking about everything you said," Kevin said, his voice thoughtful. "About us. And I know we've had our doubts, but I feel like this is it. I want to be with you, Amelia. For the long haul. I don't want to let anything get in the way of that." Amelia turned to face him, her heart pounding in her chest. "I feel the same way," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "We've come this far, and I know we can make it work. No matter what comes our way." Kevin smiled, his hand gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're my home, Amelia," he said softly. "And I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you always feel that way." Amelia's heart swelled at his words. She had never felt more certain of anything in her life. They were building something real, something worth fighting for. And no matter what challenges they faced, she knew they would face them together. As they stood there, side by side, watching the city lights twinkle below them, it was clear that they had found something special. Something worth cherishing. And as the night grew darker, Amelia felt a sense of peace settle over her. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to embrace it with Kevin by her side. Weeks passed, and the bond between Amelia and Kevin continued to grow stronger. Their relationship had shifted from something tentative into something undeniable. They spent their days supporting each other, building their dreams together, and learning to navigate the challenges that came their way. Kevin was still adjusting to the idea of being open, of letting someone in fully, but with Amelia, it felt easier, more natural. Amelia, in turn, was learning to trust him, to open up to a future she hadn't dared to imagine before. One afternoon, Kevin asked her to meet him at a special event, a charity gala he had been planning for months. It was important to him, not just because of the event itself, but because it marked a significant shift in his life. He had been known for keeping his personal life private, but he wanted Amelia to be there with him, to show the world that he was no longer hiding who he truly was. Amelia was both excited and nervous. This was the first time they would be attending a major public event as a couple, and though she had been to these kinds of events before, something about it felt different this time. She had become more than just his partner in private now, they were a team, sharing a life that was no longer a secret. When Amelia arrived at the gala, she was struck by the elegance of the event. The grand ballroom was filled with people in their finest attire, the sound of live music playing softly in the background. Kevin was already at the center of it all, speaking with guests and coordinating last-minute details. As soon as he saw her, his face lit up, and he excused himself from the crowd to join her. "You look beautiful," Kevin said, his voice filled with admiration as he took her hand. Amelia smiled, feeling a rush of warmth at the compliment. "Thank you. You don't look too bad yourself," she teased, adjusting the delicate necklace he had given her earlier. Kevin chuckled, his eyes softening. "I'm glad you're here. I've been wanting to do something like this for a while, more open, show the world who I'm with." Amelia's heart fluttered. She had always feared being overshadowed by Kevin's world, but now, here she was, standing beside him, and it felt right. It felt like they belonged together. As the evening unfolded, they shared quiet moments, stealing glances and conversations between the chaos of the gala. Kevin introduced her to people from all walks of his life, and each time, he made sure to mention her with pride. "This is Amelia," he'd say, his voice steady and sincere. "She's the one who's taught me to slow down, to appreciate what really matters." Amelia couldn't help but smile every time he said those words. Later in the evening, as the event was winding down, Kevin pulled her aside to the balcony that overlooked the city. The lights below twinkled like stars, and the cool breeze swept through the night air. "I've been thinking a lot," Kevin said, his voice quiet but steady. "About everything we've been through, about the journey we're on together. I've spent so much of my life focused on building an empire, on achieving success. But with you, I've realized that there's more to life than that. It's not just about what I can accomplish on my own. It's about what we can build together." Amelia's heart swelled at his words. "I feel the same way," she said, her voice soft. "I never thought I could have a life like this. But with you, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Kevin smiled, stepping closer to her. Amelia, he began, his eyes searching hers, I don't just want to build a life with you. I want to build everything, our future, our dreams. I want us to be partners in every sense of the word, not just in business, but in everything. Amelia's breath caught in her throat, her chest tightening with emotion. Kevin, she whispered, her heart racing, are you asking me to? Kevin interrupted her gently, his voice full of certainty. I'm asking you to be with me, forever. I want to build a life with you. A real life, not just the kind people see from the outside, but the kind that matters. The kind where we're in it together, no matter what. Amelia's heart swelled with love, and without thinking, she threw her arms around him. Yes, she said, her voice barely audible. Yes, I want that too. I want us to be together, in every way. The city lights flickered below them, but in that moment, Amelia knew nothing else mattered. They had built something real, something lasting. And as she stood there in Kevin's arms, she realized that this was just the beginning. They had a lifetime ahead of them, full of love, challenges, and everything in between. Months passed, and the life Amelia and Kevin had started building together only grew stronger. Their days were filled with moments of shared joy, challenges, and small victories. Kevin's transformation was evident. No longer was he the man driven solely by ambition and the weight of his empire. He had learned to embrace the quieter moments of life, the ones that were filled with love, laughter, and real connection. And Amelia, too, had flourished. Her art studio was no longer a distant dream, it was becoming a reality. Kevin had supported her every step of the way, not just financially, but emotionally. They were partners in every sense of the word. One Saturday afternoon, Kevin suggested they take a drive out of the city. Let's get away for a while, he said, a playful glint in his eyes. Amelia agreed, eager for a break from the busy schedule that had consumed them lately. They drove for hours, the city eventually fading behind them as they made their way to a small, quiet town surrounded by nature. The town was peaceful, its streets lined with quaint cafes and shops. It was a stark contrast to the hustle and bustle of their everyday lives, and Amelia couldn't help but feel at peace in the simplicity of it all. Kevin had planned this trip to be a getaway for the two of them, a chance to reconnect and unwind. But as they walked through the town, something shifted. Amelia felt a sense of anticipation building inside her, though she wasn't sure why. They reached a small, picturesque park, the kind where the air smelled of fresh flowers and the sounds of birds chirping filled the air. Kevin took her hand, leading her to a bench under a large oak tree. They sat down, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The quiet of the surroundings was a welcome change, a reprieve from the constant demands of their lives. Finally, Kevin turned to her, his gaze serious. Amelia, he said, his voice low but steady. There's something I've been thinking about for a while. Something I want to ask you, but I need you to know that this isn't just about a moment. It's about everything we've built together, everything we've shared. Amelia's heart began to race. She had no idea where this was going, but she could feel the weight of his words hanging in the air. What is it, Kevin? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Kevin took a deep breath, his hand still holding hers. I don't want to just spend my life with you, Amelia, he said, his eyes locking with hers. I want to share everything with you. I want us to build a future, a family. Together. I want you to be my partner, my equal, not just in business, but in life. Amelia's breath caught in her throat as Kevin reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box. Her heart stopped as he opened it, revealing a simple, beautiful ring. Will you marry me, Amelia? Kevin asked, his voice full of sincerity and hope. For a moment, Amelia was speechless, the reality of the moment sinking in. She had never imagined this day would come, this moment where her dreams, both personal and professional, would align so perfectly. She looked at Kevin, the man who had changed her life in ways she couldn't even put into words. She had built a life with him, and now, he was asking her to build something even more. A future. A family. Together. Finally, her voice returned, shaky but full of emotion. Yes, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Yes, I will marry you. Kevin's face lit up, and he slid the ring onto her finger, the warmth of his touch sending a rush of emotion through her. As he pulled her into a tight embrace, they both knew this was just the beginning. Their journey together was far from over, it was only just beginning. As they sat there, holding each other, Amelia realized that life wasn't about the destination. It was about the journey, and with Kevin by her side, she knew it would be the greatest adventure of all.